see a lot of the army. But Chairman Mao has transformed the face of China in other ways. There's no inflation in China. There are no millionaires and no beggars. No private cars, but plenty of bicycles. Physical fitness is a cult, recommended, like so much else, by Chairman Mao. Their motivation isn't fear, as in most communist countries. It's faith. Faith in one man, Chairman Mao, and his philosophy. And what happens when that man goes and he has no designated successor is a question no one can answer for sure. On probably the only English lawn in the whole of Peking, several hundred guests from the Commonwealth, friendly countries, but above all China, drank tinned orange juice, Chinese beer, Scotch whisky, and some champagne.
We put it in this order.
The main party consisted of Anthony Royle, the first Foreign Office Minister to visit China since 1949, Mrs. Royle, who sat next to Chao Kuan-hua, Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs, who's been the main Chinese minister involved in the talks with the British, and the Ambassador John Addis. He was next to Kuo-mo Zhou, Speaker of the National People's Congress, the Chinese Parliament, and the top-ranking Chinese guest. He's what he looks, a scholar of the old school. John Addis is the first British ambassador to China since 1949, when the communists took power. He proposed a toast to Chairman Mao.
To the health of His Excellency Chairman Mao Zedong, to the health of His Excellency the Acting Chairman, Mr. Dong Bi-wu, to the health of His Excellency Premier Jon Lane.
Chao Kuan-hua then did the honors for the Chinese side. Toasts were drunk in slightly warm champagne. The temperature, even at 7 o'clock, was still in the 70s. Looking at this convivial scene, it was hard to believe that only 5 years ago, another Queen's birthday party was held on the same lawn in very different circumstances. It was then the height of the Cultural Revolution, and only a few intrepid guests braved the mobs in the streets to get here. One dashing diplomat jumped the embassy wall to pay his respects. A month or so later, the embassy was set on fire and gutted. It was rebuilt by the Chinese at their expense in 1969 with apologies. Now, in 1972, it could be said that everything in the garden was lovely. Sandy Gall, News at 10, Peking. Built over 2,000 years ago to keep out the Mongol horsemen from the north, nearly 4,000 miles long, the only man-made structure visible to an astronaut's eye. The Great Wall could be a gold mine for the Chinese if only they let in Western tourists. But they've no plans to do that at this stage. Of course, thousands of Chinese come here in official transport every Sunday, the only day off most people have in China. They work a 6-day week, and they pay nothing for their sightseeing. The government would like the hard currency that American, British, and other tourists from the West and Japan would bring in. But what worries them is the thought that large numbers of Western tourists might contaminate the carefully cocooned society that is present-day China. And then the Chinese are not really interested in foreign ideas. They've always been culturally self-sufficient. They don't hanker after the Western consumer paradise. And so the chances of an open-door policy for tourists is extremely remote for the foreseeable future. The wall was built to keep out the foreign invader from the north, but it's a symbol, even in today's relatively relaxed atmosphere, of China's determination to keep China for the Chinese. A pity, because only just down the road from this section of the wall are the tombs of the Ming emperors. Only one of the 13 tombs has been excavated so far. Another Tutankhamun could lie here. Unfortunately, few outsiders would be able to see his treasures if they were brought to light. Sandy Gall, North China. China's 750 million people get up early, usually around 6 in the morning. Physical fitness is a cult, recommended, like so much else, by Chairman Mao. In Shanghai, you can see them doing their exercises soon after it's light in the park beside the Wangpu River. This is the park, legend has it, where they used to have signs reading "No dogs" and "No Chinese allowed." That, of course, was in the bad old colonial days. Like these old men in the park, Shanghai is full of relics. The British consulate on the Bund, the old foreign concession area, is one. Although still British property, it was seized during the Cultural Revolution and is now a seamen's club. And the sign on top reads, "Workers of the world, unite." Shanghai is China's biggest city with a population of 10 million people. It's also her biggest port and her most westernized city. It used to be full of extreme contrasts, millionaires and Western merchant princes living in great style, while at the other end of the scale, beggars scrounged in the gutters. The communists wiped out all that. There's no inflation in China. Prices have stayed virtually the same since 1949. There are no millionaires and no beggars. No private cars. In fact, very little private property at all, but plenty of bicycles. Chairman Mao has transformed the face of China in other ways. You see a lot of the army. But walking the streets, you suddenly realize there are no dogs and no cats about. In fact, there are no pubs, no bars, and no nightlife. After work, people eat and then go to bed, or on a rare evening out, they can watch a ballet performance like this. So much emphasis is placed on work and duty to the state that there's little time for any private life. In China, there's no kissing in public at any rate, no holding hands, hardly any couples, no sex before marriage. Offenders are sent to prison. Men are encouraged not to marry before they're 30 and women before they're 25. The recommended number of children is 2. The pill is common. Abortions are legal and cost about £10, but divorce is difficult. Family life is subordinate to the thoughts of Chairman Mao. To a Western visitor, life in China seems serious, high-minded, almost puritanical. And if it's a police state, then at least they do their own policing. Their motivation isn't fear, as in most communist countries. It's faith. Faith in one man, Chairman Mao, and his philosophy. And what happens when that man goes and he has no designated successor is a question no one can answer for sure, even in China. Sandy Gall, News at 10, Shanghai. An army medical team has been working here since 1968, using acupuncture as the basis of their treatment. The children receive 1 jab a day in courses lasting 10 days in any one of 40 different places round the ears and throat. On this occasion, the needle is inserted just behind the ear. When it locates the nerve, the child usually responds by saying "ma," which means numb, or "tang," which means tense. This indicates the needle has found its mark. What happens then is not entirely clear, even to Chinese doctors, but by stimulating the nerve, the circulation is improved, they say, and so gradually are speech and hearing. Results vary. Of the first intake in 1968, 15 children did well enough to go on to primary schools. One boy, the only complete cure so far, is now a telephone operator in the Chinese Navy. But the second intake made less progress. Acupuncture has been part of Chinese medicine for several thousand years, but it's only in the past 14 that it's been used as an anesthetic in operations, and only in the last year or two intensively. This woman had 6 needles inserted in her forehead and nose for an operation to remove an ovarian cyst. Once inserted, the needles are vibrated electrically. They used to be rotated by hand. Acupuncture is used in 1/3 of all operations in this Peking hospital, including brain and heart surgery, but it seems less successful for major abdominal surgery. And it's also used in dentistry. If the needle plays on the nerves long enough, then the result is numbness. This patient, a woman in her 30s, was conscious throughout, and at one point she said she could feel the operation going on, but she felt no pain. And as the cyst was being removed, the surgeon asked her to help by pushing, which she was able to do. The advantages of acupuncture are said to be virtually no risk of heart failure during the operation, post-operative shock is much less, and convalescence quicker. This operation lasted 35 minutes, and this is how it ended. Did she feel any pain?
你觉得疼不疼啊？
不疼，
No, she has no pain.
Did she feel anything at all?
有什么感觉吗？
就是取出那个瘤的时候啊，这个有点儿揪的什么有点儿。取出来以后呢，取出来以后就清楚了。
When the incision was made on the skin, she felt as if something brushed against the skin of her abdomen. And when the cyst was being removed, she felt a sense of retraction, something as if something tense was happening to her abdomen.
But no actual pain?
No actual pain. After the cyst was removed, she felt a very light sensation, as if something heavy has been removed from her abdomen.
She feel very weak now and very tired?
你觉得很累吧？ She hasn't any feeling of tiredness. She isn't tired.
Any feeling of shock?
你觉得有没有这个头晕啊？这样有没有？ She has no feeling of even of dizziness. She has no feeling of dizziness. The patient.
Chinese doctors say they still don't know precisely how acupuncture works, but they know that it does work. Sandy Gall, News at 10, Peking.
The Temple of Heaven is where the emperor used to come every year to give thanks after the harvest. And it's got one extraordinary feature about it. It's surrounded by a wall of resonance. And if you stand beside the wall and talk along it, your voice goes right round the entire building and can be heard by anyone standing on the wall at any point up to 200 yards away. And in fact, our guide is listening to me now on the opposite side of the courtyard, and he can hear every word I say quite clearly without me even raising my voice. Sandy Gall, News at 10, Peking.